Well, hey everybody, I'm Sam. I am a student of the Bible. I'm a pastor. I've been a pastor for 22 years, and I'm a writer. And my training involves biblical studies, theology, and biblical languages. A couple of videos ago, I said that our church, the church that I'm a pastor at, that we are going through the 7 I am statements in the Gospel of John. And if you want to check out that video, just go a couple videos before this one, and you'll see that. I talked about how we know that this is what John is doing, that John is saying that Jesus is hinting at the divine name, I am, Yahweh, back in Exodus chapter 3. So then we're going to be going through these I am statements at our church. And for the next 2 weeks, I'm going to be teaching on the I am statements found in John chapter 10, which are, I am the gate or the door for the sheep, and then I am the good shepherd. And so a lot of times when we talk about these two phrases that Jesus uses in John chapter 10 about I am the door, the gate for the sheep, and I am the good shepherd, we usually use them in very encouraging ways. As we're talking to the church, we're talking to the sheep that Jesus is talking about. We want to put that in a very positive light. I am the door. I'm the place of security and safety and provision and that kind of stuff. And I'm not going to go into too much detail about what it means when Jesus says I am the door, except for the fact that you can be the shepherd and the door at the exact same time. There's a really cool illustration about that found in first century shepherding. But then there's also, he says, I am the good shepherd, and the good shepherd lays down his life for his sheep. He knows his sheep, and his sheep follow him because they know him. All these positive, encouraging examples for the flock about who Jesus is to them. And all of those things are true. And I'm going to be focusing a lot on those over the next 2 weeks in my church. But in the church, I guess not my church, the church I serve at as a pastor. But there's another side to these I am statements that is not so much of an encouragement, but more of a really harsh rebuke that Jesus is making here. And it's to the religious leaders of their day. The Pharisees, Sadducees, the Sanhedrin, the religious leaders, all the people who were given the mantle of leadership, spiritually speaking, of the people of Israel, the shepherds of Israel, if you were. When Jesus says, I am the door for the sheep and I am the good shepherd, he is harshly rebuking this group of people. And so how do we know that? Well, we know that because of a couple of things. We know that because of the context that this passage is set in John, because in John chapter 9, we read about a man who was born blind that Jesus heals and how the Pharisees go after him. And they're really like treating him terribly. They gaslight him and question if he even was born, or even if he was even blind in the first place. They talk to his parents. I mean, they really just, all because they don't like what Jesus is doing, who he is, and what he's representing. And the fact that he's healing on the Sabbath day, which is like, in their customs, he's like, no, this is not what you do. This is against the law. And Jesus is telling them, trying to help them reinterpret the law and going, no, this isn't how the Sabbath was supposed to be intended. This is how you took it. But we get to chapter 10 because eventually these Pharisees, they get so fed up with this guy who was born blind, they kick him out of the temple. They're like, nope, you're out. And so Jesus finds this guy and he says, what's going on? Like, do you believe in the Son of Man? He goes, who is he? So I can, worship him. And he goes, I am he. And I'm the one who's talking to you. And he just falls down and worships him. And then Jesus says this phrase. He says, for judgment I've come into this world so that the blind will see and those who see will become blind. And the Pharisees question Jesus. They say, are we blind too? And you're trying to help us see? And he goes, no. If you were blind, you would not be guilty of sinning this way. But now that you claim you can see, your guilt remains. What he's basically telling me is he's saying, listen, you are the worst kind of blind because you are blind who claim you're not blind. And then you're leading other blind people doubly. And it's just this, rebuke on the Pharisees. And then he says, Specifically, this whole illustration, he tells them to their face. This is not like a turn to the crowd and talk to the crowd kind of a moment. This is a rebuke straight to their face. And he says this, very truly, I tell you, Pharisees, anyone who does not enter the sheep pen by the gate, but climbs in by some other way, is a thief and a robber. He is confronting them and rebuking them to their face. And what he is claiming to them when he says, I am the door, I am the good shepherd, he's claiming to them, you are a thief and you are a robber. You have no right to the sheep because of how you try to get them and coerce them. You have no good intentions for these sheep. All you care about is you. You are the thief, the robber. You've come to steal, you've come to kill, you've come to destroy. He says, I've come that they might have life to the fullest. I'm the good shepherd. I'm the door that protects them from people like you, from the wolves that are trying to steal and kill the sheep. And I am the good shepherd. I lay down my life for the sheep. I know these sheep. They know me. They know my voice. They follow me. They're not following you. They don't want anything to do with you. You are the fake shepherd. I am the good shepherd. This is a harsh rebuke. These statements that Jesus makes, I am the door. I'm the door to keep people like you out. I am the good shepherd because when put juxtaposed to me, you will be exposed as the fraud. You will be the fake shepherd. This is what Jesus is doing when he's saying these things, and it drives them crazy. They get so upset with him. And so it says this at the very end. After he says all these things, it says the Jews who heard these words here were again divided. The Pharisees probably weren't divided. They probably were pretty ticked off at Jesus for confronting him this way. But the people who were gathered around, who were actually understanding what he was talking about and being encouraged, some of them were encouraged. Some of them were not sure what they thought about him. It says they're divided. Many of them said he is demon possessed. He's raving and mad because he talks about laying down his life and I'm the only one who can do that. No one's going to take it from me. I can take my life up whenever I want. The Father loves me because I do this. They're like, he's a madman. He's talking crazy. And then it's why listen to him? But others said, these are not the sayings of a man possessed by a demon. Can a demon open the eyes of the blind? And so it harkens back to John chapter 9. And this whole discourse that Jesus has is really directly to the Pharisees in front of a whole group of people, calling them out, confronting them, pointing them out in front of all these people as fake shepherds, comparing them to himself like, you're the fake shepherd, I'm the real shepherd, I'm the good shepherd. So that's what he's doing here. And so we use these, when we teach in church, we often talk about them from an encouraging standpoint, mostly because we don't have these religious teachers around anymore like Jesus did in these days. Now, there are hints of Pharisees and the religious teachers back then. There are hints of those all over today. And there are false teachers. There are people who have bad intentions for the sheep. There were when Paul called it out in Philippians, when he said some teach with selfish ambition motives and all this kind of stuff. He said, but all I care about is that Christ is preached. So there have always been fake shepherds that have been out to steal, to kill, and to destroy, out for themselves. And then there are these hired hands even that are posing as shepherds of the people of God. And they're just out to get a paycheck. But Jesus is saying, I am the good shepherd. He's saying he is the good shepherd. And the people who he has called into duty to steward his sheep are under shepherds, where we are like, me as a pastor, I'm there not to be the good shepherd, but I'm there to help shepherd the people towards the good shepherd, right? And so that's how we usually talk about it. We think about it from a church standpoint. But we can't miss the fact that Jesus is using these words to harshly rebuke the Pharisees and the religious teachers who want to harm the sheep or who have self-centered, selfish motives that don't care anything about the sheep, only about themselves. And Jesus is out to rebuke those. And I think that would be a same statement that Jesus would say to any teacher or any fake shepherd that's out here today trying to lead the sheep in a different way. He would harshly rebuke them in the same way. He would say, no, I'm the door for these sheep. You're trying to climb in some other way. Only the shepherd comes in through the front door. And then I am the good shepherd. And whenever you, as a fake shepherd, are juxtaposed to me, you will be seen for the fraud that you are. And so, side note, how do you know if someone is a false shepherd? How do you know if someone is not authentically being, shepherding the sheep the way God wants them to, the way Jesus wants them to? Compare them to Jesus. Take their life and how they live and compare it to what Jesus said about what it means to be a follower of his and what it means to be a shepherd. I think you'll either see someone who wants to line up under Jesus, or you'll see a stark contrast, and you'll begin to go, oh, okay, there's a fake shepherd. There's a wolf in sheep's clothing. Like, there's those kind they're not out for good intentions for the sheep. They're not there to help serve the sheep. They're there for selfish motives. They're there for themselves. They're there to harm the sheep. And you start to see all of that. Okay. So, and Jesus's words are a rebuke to those kinds of shepherds. So we often talk about them in encouraging ways, and we should. If we are followers of Jesus, we should look at these as very encouraging statements that he is our door, he is our good shepherd. But it's also a harsh rebuke of fake shepherds, especially to the Pharisees of that day, who were supposed to be the shepherds of the people of Israel, and they were not doing their job well. All right, hopefully this was informative. Give me a like and subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one.